These items cost more than you'd make in a year. People like you don't belong in luminary jewelers." The words hung in the air like shards of broken glass as the Michigan Avenue flagship store fell silent. Customers turned to watch the confrontation unfold, some with discomfort, others with quiet satisfaction at seeing someone put in their place. The store manager, Edward Thompson, stood with arms crossed, his silver hair perfectly styled, his cold blue eyes narrowed with disdain as he stared down the simply dressed black man who had dared to inquire about the $75,000 pink diamond pendant. Security approached slowly, reluctantly, as Edward pointed toward the exit with manicured fingers. "Michael, please, escort this gentleman out. He's causing a disturbance." No one in the store could have anticipated the earth-shattering revelation that was about to unfold. No one could have guessed who this gentleman being escorted out was. As security gripped David's arm, as Edward's smug smile grew wider, neither man could possibly imagine the storm about to be unleashed, or that the next 2 minutes would transform the landscape of luxury retail in America forever. If you believe everyone should be treated fairly and respected, no matter their skin color, hit the subscribe button now. Type "respect" in the comments and share this story so others can learn from it too. David Hamilton stood before the floor-to-ceiling windows of his downtown Chicago penthouse, adjusting his simple silver wedding band, the only piece of jewelry he wore, despite owning Luminary Jewelers, one of the most prestigious jewelry chains in America. At 42, David had built his empire from nothing, the son of Haitian immigrants who had sacrificed everything for his education. His success story was the embodiment of the American dream. Harvard Business School, smart investments, and 15 years of strategic business decisions that culminated in acquiring Luminary Jewelers last year. "You sure you don't want Sarah to pick up that anniversary gift for Emily?" his assistant called from the kitchen. "The board meeting starts in 2 hours." David smiled, glancing at the framed photo of his wife on his desk. "You know, I like to select these things personally. 15 years of marriage deserves my full attention." He chose his outfit carefully: dark jeans, a navy cashmere sweater, and Italian loafers. Nothing flashy, no designer logos. David never flaunted his wealth. His parents had taught him that true character spoke louder than labels. As CEO of Luminary, he preferred to conduct occasional undercover visits to his stores, observing customer service in its natural state rather than the performance put on for announced executive visits. Today, he would visit the Michigan Avenue flagship location, the crown jewel of his recent acquisition. Though he had appointed the management team, he had yet to personally inspect the store since the rebranding was completed last month. The store manager, Edward Thompson, had come highly recommended by the previous ownership, with a decade of experience in luxury retail. As David's driver pulled away from his building, neither of them could have imagined what awaited at the store, or how those next 7 minutes would explode across social media and forever change the landscape of luxury retail in America. The Luminary Jewelers flagship on Michigan Avenue gleamed like a temple of luxury. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, and display cases that made each diamond appear to float in suspended animation. The morning sunlight danced through the windows, creating miniature rainbows throughout the showroom. David walked through the doors at precisely 10:15 a.m., nodding politely to the security guard, who barely acknowledged him. The contrast was immediate and jarring. 3 white customers had entered just before him, each greeted warmly by hovering associates in tailored black suits. For David, there was nothing. No greeting, no smile, no acknowledgement of his existence. He moved deeper into the store, past the entry-level pieces toward the high-end collection he'd personally approved last month, the Anniversary Collection, featuring rare pink diamonds sourced from Australia. Each piece was handcrafted in platinum settings, with prices starting at $50,000, 0 cents. For 5 full minutes, David studied the display cases, occasionally glancing up to see if anyone would acknowledge him. Sales associates hurried past to assist white customers who had entered after him. One woman, in a fur coat, had barely crossed the threshold before an associate rushed to offer her champagne. Finally, a tall man with silver hair and cold blue eyes approached. "Edward Thompson, The store manager David had yet to meet in person walked with the confident stride of someone who believed they owned the room. "Can I help you find something more appropriate for your budget?" Edward asked, his voice dripping with condescension. His eyes swept over David's simple clothing with obvious disapproval. "Actually," David replied calmly, "I'm interested in the pink diamond pendant from the anniversary collection. My wife's birthday is coming up." Edward's smile tightened. "Sir, that particular piece is $75,000.00. Perhaps something in our silver collection would be more suitable. We have some lovely pieces under $500.00. The humiliation was calculated, delivered in a voice just loud enough for nearby customers to hear. Several turned to watch, some with uncomfortable expressions, others with the satisfied smirk of witnessing someone being put in their place. What Edward Thompson didn't know, couldn't possibly have guessed, was that the man he was attempting to humiliate not only could afford every item in the store, but actually owned the entire building they were standing in. "I'd still like to see the pendant," David insisted, his voice measured. Despite the anger building inside him, the self-control that had helped him navigate boardrooms full of skeptical white executives now kept his dignity intact as Edward's condescension intensified. "Our policy requires income verification for items over $50,000.00," Edward said, lying smoothly. "Do you have bank statements or proof of income with you?" A young sales associate named Jessica hovered nearby, visibly uncomfortable. She glanced at David, then at her manager, clearly torn between protocol and decency. "I don't typically carry financial documents when I shop," David replied, "and I haven't noticed you requesting this from other customers today." He nodded toward the VIP section, where a blonde woman was trying on a diamond bracelet without any apparent income verification. Edward stepped closer, lowering his voice but increasing its venom. "Listen, these items cost more than you'd make in a year. We're not a museum for window shoppers. People like you don't belong in luminary jewelers." Each word was a deliberate cut, designed to make David feel small. The store had grown quieter. Other customers were watching now. Jessica took a half-step forward but stopped when Edward shot her a warning glance. "Actually," David said, his voice calm but carrying clearly in the now hushed store, "I was planning to purchase the entire anniversary collection for a corporate event. 9 pieces totaling just over $650,000.00." Edward laughed. Not a genuine laugh, but the cruel chuckle of someone who believed they'd caught another in a lie. "Of course you were," he said, voice raised for the audience of onlookers. "And I'm the Queen of England." He raised his hand, signaling to security. "Michael, please escort this gentleman out. He's causing a disturbance." The security guard approached reluctantly. "Sir, I'll need you to come with me." David stood perfectly still, the weight of humiliation pressing down on him. In 15 years of shopping at luxury establishments worldwide, he had never once been asked to prove his ability to pay before even touching a product. The rage inside him threatened to boil over, but years of navigating spaces not designed for him had taught him control. "Please don't touch me," David said firmly as the guard reached for his arm. "I'll leave on my own." But Edward wasn't interested in dignity. "Michael, remove him now. He's trespassing." As the security guard gripped David's arm, no one in the store could have imagined the storm about to be unleashed, or that the next 2 minutes would change everything. "Take your hands off me," David said, his voice quiet but carrying the unmistakable authority of someone accustomed to command. "I am David Hamilton." The name hung in the air. The security guard's grip loosened slightly, confusion crossing his face. The David Hamilton? Jessica, the young sales associate, her eyes widening with recognition. Edward Thompson rolled his eyes. "Sure you are, and I'm Jeff Bezos." He gestured impatiently to the security guard. "Michael," I said, "escort him out." David slowly reached into his pocket and removed his wallet. From it, he pulled not a credit card, but his executive ID badge with the Luminary logo and CEO title clearly visible. I purchased this company last year. Every employee should have received my welcome email with my photograph. The color drained from Michael's face as he immediately released David's arm. Sir, I'm so sorry. I didn't... It's not your fault, David interrupted, his eyes fixed on Edward. You were following orders from your manager. Edward's smug expression collapsed into shock, his face paling to an ashen gray. This is some kind of joke, he stammered, reaching for the ID badge. David pulled it back. I don't believe I gave you permission to touch my personal belongings. He turned to face the store at large, where customers and employees alike stood frozen in a tableau of shock. Would someone please call Sarah Winters, the company's chief operating officer? Her number should be in the emergency contacts list. Jessica rushed to the phone behind the counter, her hands shaking as she dialed. The entire store seemed suspended in time. Customers with phones raised, capturing the unfolding drama. Employees exchanging panicked glances. Edward Thompson swaying slightly as though he might faint. When Sarah's voice came through the speakerphone, any remaining doubt evaporated. David, is everything all right? You're supposed to be in the board meeting in an hour. Sarah, I'm at the Michigan Avenue store, David replied, his voice steady. Please have security footage from the last 15 minutes secured and sent to legal, and I need you to initiate Emergency Protocol 7. The employees who recognized the code, the emergency replacement of management, exchanged alarmed glances. Edward Thompson's face transformed from shock to desperation as the full implications dawned on him. Mr. Hamilton, he began, his voice cracking. There's been a terrible misunderstanding. Had I known who you were... That's precisely the problem, David interrupted, his calm demeanor more terrifying than any shouting could have been. You shouldn't need to know who I am to treat me with basic human dignity. As Edward stumbled backward, knocking over a display case with a crash that echoed through the silent store, no one moved to help him. The path to justice was clearing, and everyone in the room knew they were witnessing something that would soon explode far beyond these walls. Everyone's attention, please, David announced, his voice measured yet commanding. His CO presence, the same energy that had closed billion-dollar deals and transformed failing companies, filled the room. Customers who had been heading for the exits paused, sensing they were witnessing something historic. Sarah arrived within minutes, breathless, her eyes widening as she took in the scene. She'd worked with David for 7 years and had never seen the controlled fury now evident in his eyes. Ed, David said, addressing the store manager by his first name, deliberately diminishing his authority. Would you like to explain why you attempted to remove me from my own store? Edward's composure had completely crumbled. Mr. Hamilton, if I had known who you were... Stop, David cut him off. That defense makes it worse, not better. You're saying you only treat people with respect if they have power over you? The question hung in the air. Edward had no answer. Sarah, please pull up the security footage from the past hour on the main display screen, David instructed. The store's massive central screen, normally featuring rotating images of jewelry, now displayed the security feed from multiple angles. The entire store watched as the footage showed David entering, being ignored, and then approached by Edward. Every dismissive comment, every contemptuous look played in high definition. When it reached the moment Edward called security, audible gasps filled the room. This isn't just about me, David said, addressing the entire store. How many others have been treated this way? Show of hands. How many employees have witnessed similar treatment of customers based on appearance or race? Slowly, trembling hands rose, first Jessica's, then another associate's, then more, until over half the staff had their hands up. I built this company on the principle that luxury is not about exclusion, but about excellence, David continued. Edward, you're fired, effective immediately. Edward's face contorted with desperate anger. You can't do this. I have a mortgage, a family. So do the countless qualified applicants you've likely turned away because they didn't fit your image of who belongs in luxury retail, David replied. Sarah will escort you to collect your belongings. Your final check will include 2 weeks' severance, more generosity than you showed to customers you deemed unworthy. As security, now deeply apologetic, escorted Edward toward the back office, he turned back, his face red with humiliation and rage. "This isn't fair. One mistake shouldn't cost me everything." David met his gaze steadily. "It wasn't one mistake. It was your entire approach to who deserves respect. And it wasn't a mistake at all. It was a choice you made repeatedly, one that finally caught up with you." As Edward disappeared into the back, the store remained silent, the air electric with tension and the sense that something fundamental had shifted. The transformation had begun, and in the luxury retail world, nothing would ever be quite the same. "Everyone, gather around," David said, his voice softer now but no less commanding. The remaining staff formed a nervous semicircle, some wiping away tears, others exchanging worried glances. Customers remained frozen in place, many still recording on their phones. "What you witnessed today was a failure at every level," David began. "Not just Edward's failure as a manager, but our failure as a company to create a culture where such behavior is unthinkable." He turned to Sarah. "Effective immediately, this store will close for 2 weeks for comprehensive retraining. All staff will be paid during this period." Relieved sighs rippled through the group, but David continued, "When we reopen, things will be different. Every employee will undergo bias training. Mystery shoppers of all backgrounds will regularly test our service quality, and most importantly, we're instituting a zero-tolerance policy for discrimination of any kind." Jessica, the young sales associate who had seemed uncomfortable during the confrontation, stepped forward hesitantly. "Mr. Hamilton, I wanted to apologize for not intervening sooner. I knew what Mr. Thompson was doing was wrong, but I was afraid for my job." David nodded thoughtfully. "Fear is a powerful silencer, Jessica. Part of our new culture will be creating safe channels for employees to report problematic behavior without fear of retaliation." He surveyed the room, making eye contact with each staff member. "Some of you may not be comfortable with these changes. That's okay. Sarah will accept resignations with 2 weeks severance for anyone who chooses to leave." No one moved. "For those who stay," David continued, "I promise you this. Luminary will become a place where excellence and respect define us, not exclusivity and elitism. We can be high-end without being high-handed." He turned to the customers who remained, many still recording. "As for our valued customers, I apologize for the disruption. Everyone in the store today will receive a $500 0-cents gift certificate and my personal assurance that what you witnessed today is not who we are or who we will be." A wealthy-looking older white woman stepped forward, removing her designer sunglasses. "Young man, I've shopped at luxury establishments for 40 years, and I've seen this kind of discrimination more times than I can count, usually hidden behind fake smiles and coded language. What you did today took courage. You have my business for life." Other customers nodded in agreement, some applauding softly. As the spontaneous applause grew, David felt something shift in the atmosphere, from tension to possibility, from shame to hope. What had begun as a moment of humiliation was transforming in real time into something entirely different, a catalyst for change that would soon extend far beyond the walls of this single store. 6 months later, David Hamilton stood at a podium in the completely redesigned Michigan Avenue flagship store. Gone were the intimidating glass barriers and exclusive atmosphere. In their place stood a welcoming space where luxury items were still displayed with reverence, but without the implied message that only certain people deserved to see them. "Welcome to the new luminary," David announced to the assembled press, camera flashes illuminating the transformed space as he cut the ceremonial ribbon, "where we believe that true luxury isn't about keeping people out. It's about inviting everyone to experience excellence." The story of what had happened 6 months earlier had exploded across social media within hours of the incident. The security footage, leaked by an anonymous employee, though David had his suspicions about Jessica, had gone viral with over 50 million views. Luminary lessons had trended for weeks, sparking a national conversation about racism in luxury retail. Rather than fighting the tide of public opinion, David had leaned into the moment, appearing on national news programs to speak candidly about his experience and his vision for change. The luminary transformation, as it came to be known, had become a case study in how to turn a crisis into an opportunity. The staff now reflected the diversity of the city itself. Edward Thompson had become a cautionary tale in corporate training sessions nationwide, and most surprisingly to industry analysts, Luminary's sales had increased by 38% since reopening, proving that inclusion wasn't just morally right, it was good business. As David walked through the store, he stopped at a special display near the entrance, the Equity Collection, featuring pieces designed by a cohort of emerging jewelers from underrepresented backgrounds. The program, launched in the wake of the incident, had already discovered remarkable talent that might otherwise have remained unseen. Jessica, now promoted to assistant manager, approached with a young black woman who nervously clutched her purse, eyes wide as she looked around at the luxury surroundings. "Mr. Hamilton, this is Aaliyah. She's a design student at the Chicago Art Institute. She was admiring the Equity Collection display." David extended his hand warmly. "Aaliyah, welcome to Luminary. Are you interested in jewelry design?" "Yes, sir," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm working on my portfolio, but I wasn't sure if this was the right place for me." "It absolutely is," David assured her, leading her to the apprenticeship information displayed nearby. "Talent belongs everywhere, Aaliyah. Sometimes the world just needs a little reminder of that fact." As he watched Jessica give Aaliyah a tour of the design studio upstairs, David reflected on the journey of the past 6 months. One moment of discrimination had sparked a movement that was now reshaping an entire industry. "Was it worth it?" Sarah asked, appearing at his side. David nodded, watching as another diverse group of customers entered the store, greeted warmly by staff who made no assumptions about their ability to purchase. "The most valuable things we create aren't made of gold or diamonds," he said quietly. "They're the moments when we choose to be better than our past, when we build something that outlasts us." Outside, the luminary sign gleamed in the Chicago sunlight, its meaning forever transformed, no longer a store that excluded, but a beacon that illuminated the path forward. Have you ever witnessed discrimination in a high-end establishment? Type "justice" in the comments and tell us where you're watching from. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button